So instead of kare, we could say kangre. So it's quite similar, kare and kangre. There isn't a great difference between these two. It's just one is more spoken language, whereas the other is a grammatical particle, kang. So today we're going to learn the usage of kangre or kare, katsu, and katu. Only three of these. So we have so let me just write it here. So three particles that we're going to study today are going to be are you able to hear me now? Is everyone able to hear me now?
Jelas.
No. Okay, so everyone is able to hear. So I hope everyone is able to hear me. So we're going to study Kangre. It is Kangtu, but and Kangtsu. Normally, you have heard the more the version that's used more in the spoken language, that is kare, katu, and katsu. So please understand that both of these, the ones that I've sent in the first three that I've written here, kangre, kangtu, kangtsu, is same as saying kare, katu, katsu. One is more towards the spoken language, whereas the other one uses the correct grammatical particle. So kangre, katu, kangtu, and katsu, kangtsu. So we're going to study the usage of three of these particles today, including learning some of the numbers. Most of the numbers, I feel that most of you have already have heard of these numbers. Some of them may be new, and there are many numbers in between that I have not written here. Normally, the numbers that I have included, some of them may not come to use, but some of them truly will come to use, especially these ones are the one which are going to be used more frequently. So the first number in Tibetan, that is 0, that's leko, that I have not included here. So now we're starting with 1, which is chik, 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 which means 1. Ni. So some of you who have already studied the basic conversation in other classes, for you this will become a revision, and I cannot say 100%, but I might be able to bring out some of the some things that might be new, or it might be something that you have already studied. So in either way, this becomes a revision to every one of you. And those who are studying this for the first time, then this is a new lesson to you. So so the first one is chik, which means 1. Ni. Ko nyakyugu. Ko nyakyugu. Nisa ni. So you see that there is a proper change of sound with the addition of the prefix and the suffix here. So ko nyakyugu ni. So here you see that the sound of nya is not changed a lot with the addition of ka, but when we add the sa, ko nyakyugu ni sa ni, you see that the sound becomes a little higher. And this is because of the change of sound due to this particular sound here, ni, which means 2. Sum, ko sashakyu suma sum, which means 3, sum. She. Ho shakiku she. Which means 4, nga. Which means 5. Tuk is 6. Tuk. Tuk is 6. Dun. 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 You can either say dun or dun. So both of these are correct. One has more emphasis on the na, whereas the other one smooths out the sound of na and more emphasis towards the u sound. Dun and dun. Dun, which means 7. Ge. Ge, which is 8. Ge. Gu. 9. Gu. 9. Chu. 10. Chu. 10. Chu. So now you'll see that there's a little bit change in the sound, and this is a rule that is more inclined towards the spoken language rather than the written language. But still, this is something that is that can be seen very much in effect when you see the native people. So when I say native, I'm referring to Tibetan people. When they speak, you'll see this particular change in the transition of sound, particular transition of sound. Instead of this being chuchik, you will hear it as chuk, chik, chuk, chik. And then you'll wonder, well, according to the rule that is during the basic reading class, we have learned that only when there is a certain sound, there is a change in the sound of the formal foundation of names. So this particular portion can only change sound when there is addition of the sound. And here, when it becomes chuk, chik, it seems like there is a ka over here. And this rule comes from the spoken language. What happens is that if there is a word which has 2 syllables and the former syllable doesn't have a suffix letter, meaning doesn't have a letter that follows this particular part of the name known as foundation of name, if it doesn't have a suffix letter and the second syllable has a prefix, meaning a part which comes before this particular part of a name known as foundation of name, and this is known as the prefix which comes before this foundation of name. So if there is a foundation, a prefix in the second syllable, and there is no suffix in the first syllable, what happens is that you can actually use this rule to bring the sound of the prefix from the second syllable and add it as a suffix in the first syllable. Thus, what it does is that instead of this being chuchik, the sound of k adds to the end of chu, making it chuk, and this becomes chik. So instead of chuchik, it becomes chukchik, chuk, chik. And this is why there is this change in the sound. So chukchik, then, which is 11, chungni. So here we see that the sound, in this case, we see that the prefix is not added here, but there is a great change in the sound due to this particular foundation of name, which is nya. And here the sound of nya goes more, it inclines more towards its more towards the sound of nga. So instead of chuni, it becomes chung. So there is a sound of nga which is added to this particular this particular sound. And this transition is because of the nya over here. So nya has a certain property. In certain cases, it can bring out a sound of nga before it. So instead of chuni, it becomes chung, chung, chung. You see there's which is the sound of nga. So there are certain cases where this particular letter nya can bring out a sound of nga. So instead of chuni, it becomes chungni, which is 12. Then chuksum, 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 which means which is 13, chuksum or chusum or choksum. So sometimes you'll see that the O sound may also be present here, choksum, but normally chuksum. And the k sound is added here because of the rule that tells us that the prefix is added to the first syllable, chuksum. 13, chupshi. So you hear this word, the sound chupshi, and the p sound comes here because of this prefix, which is p added here. It makes it chup, shi, chupshi, or chushi, or chupshi. 14. So this should be lowercase. So chonga, chonga, 15, chutuk, 16, chutuk. Here we see that there is no change in the sound because there is no prefix here. Chupdu, because there is pa here, which is added to the first syllable, it becomes chup, chupdu, 17, choke, 18, chuku, chuku, chu, chu. You can say it, you can pronounce it as chuku, chuku, with the addition of ta, or chuku, or chuku. Both are correct. You can either make that transition with the addition of this particular prefix here, or you can pronounce it without the transition. So chuku or chugu. Nishu, which is 20. So nishu tsachik or nirchik. These are two ways of saying 21. You can either pronounce the whole thing by saying nishu tsachik, or you can just say nirchik. Both means 21. Nishu tsaku nirku, which means 29. Sumchu. So here is the rule that some of you might know, and for some of you this might be a new rule. That is, when we are adding chu actually means 10. Sumchu means 3 times 10, which is 30. So we see that in this particular case, it has a suffix, which is ma here. Therefore, whenever we write chu after this, what we will do is we will write it without a pa. Actually, chu comes with this pa here. But when we add it to a, when we add it as a second syllable of a name, in the case of numbers, if the first syllable has a suffix letter, we will not write the prefix here, which is pa. Instead, we'll just write chu. So sumchu, 30. Sumchu sochik. So in case of 20, we use za chik. In case of 30, we will use so chik. Sumchu sochik, 31, or simply sochik. Then sumchu sogu or sogu would be 39. So we have shipchu. Here we have pocha shimrichu because there is no suffix here. We don't see a suffix letter here. Therefore, we use it as shipchu or shichu. We can either say shichu or shipchu. Shipchu in the case where you're bringing this prefix in and adding it to this first syllable, making shipchu or shichu, which means 40. Shipchu shechik. In case of 40, you use she. In case of 30, you use so. In case of 20, you use re. You use za. Nishu zachik, sumchu sochik, shipchu shechik. Or simply shechik, which means 41. Shipchu shegu or shegu, which means 49. So shipchu 40, and then when you use either she, so, or za, you just add the number that is following this particular connecting word. So if it's shipchu shegu, it means you have to add 9 to 40, making it 49. If it's shipchu shechik, you add 1, it becomes 41. Then we have ngachu or ngapchu. Ngapchu in the case where you bring this in the first syllable, so ngapchu. Otherwise, ngachu, which is 50. Ngachu ngachik. In case of ngachu, you use nga or ngachik simply, which means 51. Then you have trukchu. Here you see that truk has a suffix letter, therefore there is no prefix here. So it is simply chashapichu. So the rule is, if the first syllable has a suffix, then when you add chu, you don't write the pa. If the first syllable doesn't have a suffix, then when you write chu, you'll use the suffix, the prefix pa. Trukchu. So in case of trukchu, re chik. Sorry, this is incorrect. So there's no pa here. So trukchu, re chik, or rechik simply, 61. Then we have tunchu, which is 70. Tunchu, tunchik, or tunchik. So for 70, you have tun. So for 20, it was tsa. For 30, it was so. For 40, it was she. 50, it was nga. 60, it was re. And 70, it is tun. So tunchu, tunchik, or tunchik, which means 71. Gechu, similar here because it has a suffix, so this will not have a prefix. Gechu, 80. Gechu kechik. Gechu kechik or kechik, 81. So in the previous class of the Tree of Excellent Speech, I remember a question that was asked, that what's the difference between the old and the new translation? So one thing that is that was used during the old translation is that there wasn't this type of variation that you see, re, so, she, nga. Everything was tsa. So it was ngapchu tsachik, shipchu tsaku, sumchu tsachik. So everything was just simply tsa. They didn't have a variation that you see here. Here you see that when it's 20, they have tsa. For 30, they have so. For 40, they have she. So during the old translation, everything was tsa. So it was nishu tsachik, sumchu tsachik, shipchu tsachik, ngopchu tsachik, trukchu tsachik, tunchu tsachik, gechu tsachik, kupchu tsachik. So it was only tsa during the old translation. But during the new translation, for 20, it is nishu tsachik, 30, it is sumchu sochik, 40, it is shipchu shechik, 50, it is ngopchu ngachik, 60, it is tukchu rechik. So this is something that changed during the introduction of the new translation. So here we see it's gechu kechik. If it was during the old translation, it would be gechu tsachik. And this you can actually see if some of you are familiar with the Tibetan Buddhist text, especially the Lorik. If you have studied the Lorik, in which we have 51 mental factors, which is Simjung Ngapchu Tsachik. They don't say Simjung Ngapchu Ngachik, they say Simjung Ngapchu Tsachik, which is the 51 mental factors. So in that case, you will see the usage of the old translation, which is sa instead of nga. So you see this. This is one of the difference between the old and new translation. Okay, so Keju Kechik 81 or simply Kechik is 81. Kuchu or Kupchu 90. Kuchu Kochik or Kochik 91. So till here we have 2-digit number. Now we will have, so from here we'll just study different digit places. So these were all tens. So the 100, kya is 100, kya, kya. And then we have tong. So if it's kya, it's 100. If it's nigya, it's 200. So you just add the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in front of kya, and that would be the particular 100 that we're talking. If it's 500, ngap kya. Similarly here, tong is 1000. Chik tong is 1000. Nidong is 2000. So the other thing that needs to be understood is that once we start talking about the hundreds and thousands, one will be written as chik, chakyu chika chik, and two will be written as nyakiguni, and three will be written as sashapyusum. That's the only difference. Otherwise, it's the same. And then we have T, which is 10,000. Bum, which is 100,000. Saya is 1,000,000. Chewa is 10 million. Tungchur is 100 million. Terbum is 1 billion. Terbum Chempo, which is 10 billion. Turkti is 100 billion. And Turkti Chempo is 1 trillion. And then there are more in between. But the last number in Tibetan is Tangme. So there is a Thai here. So it's actually Tangme. So Tangme is simply 1, which is followed by 60 zeros. So Tangme. So we have other, so the reason we have a number with 60 zeros is that there are things that needs this kind of number to be used as calculation. And you'll be surprised that the other things that we use, for example, like champa and ningje, these are also some of the unit places in the number. Like ningje is 1 followed by 40 zeros. So you see that there are other number system which are known as ningje champa. So there are numbers till the 60th digit in Tibetan that we count. So Changme is 1 followed by 60. So this is the number system that we use, and normally we'll use normally in counting we just use to terbum, which is 1 billion. So normally we don't use numbers which are higher than this. So this is the structure of the numbers that we use in Tibetan. So the thing that we learn about number is that whichever number that you want to write, and whichever how many times the particular unit is, you just write it in the beginning. If it's 100, you'll just simply write, if it's 300, you'll write sum, and then you'll write yeah. So sumkya, which means 300. So the way you write is the greater the unit digit, you write it in the beginning. If you're talking about 120,500, so you first write the 100,000, followed by the 20,000, and then followed by the 500. So this is how you write it in Tibetan also. So this is something that we learned. And the other thing is that if the number that is written before the place has a suffix, then the particular place that is written after it will not have a prefix. This is something that we learned. So these are the numbers, and you can, since you already understood how to use them by just looking at the way they're written here, then you can just add these numbers and create the numbers. Like, for example, if you want to say like 572, it will be ngapkya tunchu thuni. So ngapkya tunchu thuni. So this is how you construct the numbers in Tibetan. So the things like so, re, thun, kya, ko, these are only valid for the tens place. When we go to the hundreds and the thousands and the 10,000s, you don't need to particularly say re or so or ko or kya. Okay, so now let us see a small conversation between Tashi and Tsering, where there is usage of this number. So, Kangsa Tangbo, first person. Tashi dele Tsering la. So it always begins with greetings. So greetings, Tsering la. The second person, which is Tsering la, says, Tashi dele, Tashi la, Kukam sang. So greetings to you, Tashila. Wish you a good health. Wishing you a good health. So this is actually a very good way of initiating a conversation. Anytime that you're going to have a conversation with a person, you start with a greeting that is Tashidele. And once they say Tashidele to you, so in this case, we see that Tsering initiates the wishing by saying, after Tashidele, he says Kukamsa. In many a case, you will see that this is not the case, that the other person will not initiate saying good health to you. In those cases, when they only reply by saying Tashidele, you can initiate the wishing and say Kukam sang to them. So in this particular scenario, we see that every time it's the second person who is initiating the wishing of good health. So if that is the case in the situations that you face in your real life, then you can go according to the script. Otherwise, you can initiate by wishing them. So the first thing that you do, so similarly, in those cases, the first greeting may come from someone else. So they may say Tashidele. So for example, if someone if I met someone on that I knew in the market, they would say Tashidele Pakwala. So I would say Tashidele, then whoever I have met, then I'll say Kukamsan. So I can initiate the wishing. But in some cases, the person may not begin with the greeting. They may directly initiate using the wishing. They say, oh, so for example, if we had, so let's say, Tenzin, we can say, Tenzin la, Kukam-san. Then you can answer, oh, Kukam-san, and whoever the person is. So in this case, we see that the conversation is initiated by wishing a good health, and that is also understood as a greeting. So says Kansa Tangbo Tashila says Kukamsan Tering ngeni Tom. So we see that here the conversation jumps from greeting to the conversation that talks about what they should do today. And so we see that the person says, Tashit kukamsa, tering ngeni. So you see the usage of nge here, which is one of the alternative of nga. Ngeni means both, and then there's no sa here. There is just kartan tomatum. So let me just write it here. So very sorry for that, because sometimes when I'm writing these scripts, I just seem to be making a little mistake. So so there is no sa here. It's kartan tomatum, which means market. Tering or tering, it's the same. So it could be tering, which means today, or it could be tering, which also means today. And in some cases, you may even hear usage of tengring, which is quite rare, but still it also means today. So tering ngeni tom la hongbe. So this particular particle sa, what it does is that it actually acts as a conjunction of reasoning. So it's a conjunction. It acts as a conjunction that derives a reasoning. Tering ngeni tom la hongbe says that since we have come to the market today, chala nyoruto, let us go and buy some things. So there are two spellings, one which has a la at the top of here, one which doesn't have a la here. So there are two spellings. So please be notified. So Tashila says, wishing you a good health too. And since we have come to the market today, let us buy things. So we see that nyoruto. In some of the more colloquial influence, you'll see chala nyokatro. Chala nyokatro. You'll see the usage of ka. So let me write this too. So there are certain things that you'll find which are different in this particular script, which is to the ones that you have heard. And please understand that this is because a majority of the script is strongly inclined towards the written language, though there is usage of some of the spoken language particles in here, but it's very minimum. So which means since today we have come to the market, let us go and buy things. So this is a suggestion by Tashila, to which the answer is lasso. So always lasso. It's a very good way to acknowledge someone, acknowledge that you have heard someone speaking. Either lasso, and if you agree to it, and if you think it's a good thing, then you say lexo, which is saying like, oh, perfect. So lasso. 당보 강 묘로 조이인. So you see that here I have used 강. In certain cases, you will see the usage of kare. You may see kare nyoka drogins, kare nyoka drogi in. So you may also hear people saying kare nyoka drogi in, and the usage of ki after this particular, as you see here, ki after this particular word, which is actually grammatically incorrect. Like we discussed, ngaki for my is very wrong. We'll say nge, ngai, nge ki. These are the three alternatives. Either use nge, or you can use ngai, and you can use ngeki. The difference between ngai and nge is that you see that here we don't have the punctuation, that is the dot between nga and yi. Whereas in this case, we have this punctuation, the dot. And for the last one, we see that it's kaidekekyuki, ngeki. These are the only 3 correct ways to say my. Ngaki is something that has happened due to the declination of the declination of the grammatically correct spoken language in Tibetan community. And it's actually something that's worrisome and painful that's happening. So kare nyoka drokihin, sometimes you may hear this, but the actual thing, if you want to be grammatically correct, it would be kang nyoru doi in nam. And another thing that that this more contemporary thing that's bringing in Tibetan language is the declination in the usage of this particular particle when you're saying when you're using a question. So it's always best to stick to the more traditional way of doing it and always bring in the particles whenever they are necessary. Sometimes it may seem too wordy, but it's more accurate. So kang nyoru troi yinnam, which means what are you going to buy? Or what are we going to buy? Right? So you see a difference between this particular phrase that I have written here and this particular phrase, kare nyoka trokiin and kang nyoru troi yinnam. True, in some cases, you may use kare. Kare is not incorrect. It is not a written language, but it's not incorrect. It is correct particle used in the spoken language, which is also another way of saying kang. So instead of saying kangre, we can say kare. So we can say kare nyoru troi yinnam, which is also correct. The only difference is the usage of these 2 particles. One is kang, other is kare. Otherwise, it's correct. So you see that there's this particular sentence which says 방보 강 nyoru doi yinnam, in nam. So there is the addition of nam here, which I have missed. So there is addition of nam. It says, what are we going to buy? What should we buy first? So we see that Tashila is answering to this by saying lasso or la, whichever you want to use. 방보 탭 nyorutrona 강tra 독함. So 방보 탭 nyorutrona 강tra 독함. So whenever you're having a conversation and someone asks you what should we buy first, you should always say 방보 강 nyorutroi yin nam. Always with the nam. So 방보 강 nyorutroi yin nam. What should we go to, what should we buy first, or what are we going to buy first? So the same meaning here. So what are we going to buy first? 방보 강 nyoru troi yinnam. So in some case where it's very casual and in a very casual manner, and there's disregard for both the written and the spoken rules, you may hear 방보 가래 nyoke. So 방보 가래 nyoke. It's like, what are we going to buy first? But this is a very casual way of saying it, with disregard to both the colloquial and the written language rules. So personally, I would request everyone most humbly to not use such type of language, because it has no regard to the rules of the language itself. but it's very much in use. So like I said, it is very much in use, and you will see many people using it. You will hear many people using it. Instead of this, you can either say 당보 가래 녀루 조이인 or 당보 강 녀루 조이인. Right? So these two are correct. So I encourage everyone to use this one, though it may seem more wordy, but it's the correct way to do it. So 당보 강 녀루 조이인 or 당보 강 녀루 조이 당보 가래 녀루 조이인. So that means what should we buy first? And so we see Tashila is answering 당보 라소, which is to acknowledge that I have heard what the person has to say. Say 라소, which is more or less to say okay. 당보 탭 녀루드러나 강자 독함, which is how about buying some books first? So how about we go and buy some books first? So 강자 is like how. And the answer is lare, which means yes. It's a polite way of saying yes. Rere is also a more casual way of saying yes. Or rere or lare. 탭 가주 뉴규 있남. So 탭 가주 is a particle that asks how much of a something. How much of a something should we get? How much of a something should we have? So 가주. 탭 가주 뉴규 있남. How many books, or how much, so here in this case, how many? So sorry, this is incorrect. It's how many. 가주 can have a meaning of how much. It can have a meaning of how many. It can have a meaning of how many or how much, depending on what we're talking about. So 가주 can have a meaning of how many. In this case, the books, how many. If it's like food or something, how much. Depending on whether we're talking of quantity as something that is uncountable and quantity that is countable. If it's a quantity which is uncountable, for example, if we say soup, we can say how much soup. When we say 가주, it will be how much. But if we're talking about books which can have a definite quantity, because it has a definite 1 unit, a quantity of a unit. In those cases, we can say how many. So, 탭 가주 뉴규인, how many books should we buy? So the answer is la, which is a polite way of acknowledging that I have heard what the former person has to say. La, 탭 주녀나 촉. 촉 means best. So it means it's best to buy 10 books. It is best to buy 10 books. 탭 주녀나 촉. So always remember the things that makes the conversation more polite, because when you use it, it sounds better. The person who hears it, to them, it sounds so much better when you're using the more polite and the language which consists of the honorifics. So la is just an acknowledgement, but still it helps a lot in carrying on the conversation in a more respectful and polite manner. So la 탭 주녀나 촉. 촉 means best. You may also have hear someone saying 탭 주녀나 디그레. 탭 주녀나 디그레. Let me see. So you may also have heard teb chu nyona dikire. So this is also correct, which means buying 10 books would be correct. So, but another way of saying it is teb chu nyona chok, which means it's best to buy 10 books. And then lekso, which means that the second person is agreeing with the first person, saying excellent. Tadung kang myo kwesam, which means what's next? What more should we buy? So in this exchange, we see that numbers are used in this kind of way, where normally the numbers are used after the things that needs to be quantified. So tepchu, here we see that in English we say 10 books, but in Tibetan it's more like books 10. So the number that signifies the quantification or the quantity of a thing is always written after the particular thing. So tepchu, 10 books. Tepchu nyona chok, which means buying 10, it's best to buy 10 books. So if we want to say pencil or pen, we have nyuku. Nyuku nga 5 pen. So you see that the numbers always comes after the particular article or the object in Tibetan. Okay, now talking about the 3 particles that we're going to talk about the 3 particles, which is kang, ketu. So I think this will be more and katsu. So instead of putting more influence towards the usage of kang, here we can also use ka. So instead of kare, kang. So kang and kare, so both kang and kare are used as what. So it's used as this particular particle is used as the English interrogative pronoun or preposition, which is what. Kera mean kangare. Kera tse kangare. Kera ki tse karire. Kera ki tse kangare. What is your name? So, for example, so the extra notes are in the chat. So I would like to request everyone to copy the things that I'm writing here. The things that I'm writing here are not in the PDF. So, kera ki se kang re tam. Kera ki se kari re tam. So here we see that I have used both the grammatical particle as well as the colloquial spoken language particle, kare and kang. Other than that, the entire sentence is the same. Kerang ki tsen kang re tam. Kerang ki tsen kari re tam. And both of these is used as what. So the sentence is, what is your name? So we're asking, what is your name? And the particular particle that here is understood as what is kang or kare, which means what. Now, if we want to say, what is this? What is this thing? What is this thing? And we would use the same particle. We would say the khang re tham or the khare re tham. So in particular cases, we also hear the khare re ve waha ve, which is also a particle, which is asking what is this and making it into a question. But here we will use the more common way of saying it, which is de khang re tham. So the usage of the more common particle, that is tham, instead of ve. Ve is actually not used as a question, but in certain special cases, like de khare re ve, de khare re pe. These are the cases where it turns into a question, but in a very specific setting. But we will discuss this later, and mostly in the class which has to do with the grammar, not in this particular class. In this particular class, please be notified, or please understand that the usage of tham, nam, ram will be more encouraged here because it's more common, and it doesn't require a special circumstance that these are considered to be interrogative particles. So the khang re tham or the khare re tham, where khare and khang becomes a particle that asks what is this? So the khang re tham or the khare re tham. So khang or khare is used as what. So now the second particle, which is khatu. Khatu is to be understood as when. So khatu, tu, kha or khang is more or less asking a question of what, when. It's more like what, and tu is time. So it's a question related to time that tells us when something has happened. Khatu, khangtu, khatu, either khatu or khangtu. Both of these are correct. But khatu is more, it's used more often, and it's more familiar with people who have studied the spoken language a little bit. So let's go with khatu. And those who are using khangtu, you're inclining more towards the written language. So both of them are correct. The only difference is one is more inclination towards the spoken and one is more inclined towards the written. So khatu or khangtu. So we say, okay, let's say. So, Gyalwa Rinpoche Gu Chungka Khatu Retam, or so everything is the same. The only difference is the particle. Either you say khatu or khangtu, which means when. So this particular sentence means when is the birthday of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. So it says, when is the birthday of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama? So we see that the particular particle, which is Kangdu or Kadu, makes this question into a when question. Then similarly, we can say, Sagadawa Katu Retam. Sagadawa Katu Retam. Which means, when is the month, when will the month of Sakadawa? So when is the month of Saka? So this is the question which says, when is the month of Saka? So we see that the particular particle Kangtu or Katu refers to when. So whenever you use the particular particle Katu or Kangtu, understand that you're talking about when. And when you're using Kang or Kare, you're talking about what. Now the final one is Katsu or Kangtsu. Both of them means how much or how many. How much or how many. So please copy everything from the chat, because you don't have this on this on this document. So Kadu or Katsu or Kangtsu refers to how much or how many. If it's something that is countable, it's a countable noun, then normally it is how many. If it's uncountable, so we say how much. So Kera Momo Katsu Sai Innam, or Kera Momo Kangtsu Sa Topam. So the first one is how many momos will you eat? The second one is how many momos are you able to eat? So how many momos will you eat? And the second one is how many momos can you eat? So the difference is the usage of tup talks about the abilities, but kangtsu and katsu are the same, which is how many in this case, because momo is a countable noun. You can count how many momos, so it becomes a countable noun. So how many momos will you eat, or how many momos can you eat? But it means this particular particle, katsu or kangtsu, talks about how many or how much. Another example is Nye Kerala Un Katsu Tu Gusam. Nye Kerala Un Katsu Tu Gusam. Which means, how much money should I pay you? Or how much money do I have to pay you? So in this particular case, we see that it becomes how much. So therefore, it can also be understood as how much or how many. So katsu and kangtu are used as how much and how many. Kadu and kangdu are used as when, and kare and kang are used as what. So these are the three particles that I wanted to introduce today, which are used in the spoken language. So these are the particles, some of the particles that we will discuss in this particular class, which is of the conversation, but will not be touched during the grammar class that's going on, because it's not the subject of coverage in that particular lesson. So therefore, some of these particles you'll only learn in this class. So make sure that you pay more attention to those type of particles. And when those particles are being taught, I will make sure to say that I'll make sure to tell you that these are the particles we're only going to study in this lesson. So therefore, these three, except for kang, all the particles that were discussed today are only going to be subject of this this particular lesson. So therefore, make sure you pay attention to them. And if you have any questions, make sure to ask away. So this is it for today. So before we call it a day, if there's any questions regarding today's lesson, please ask away. So any questions regarding today's lesson? So if you have any questions, please ask away. And the assignments will be sent by tomorrow afternoon regarding this lesson. So does anyone have questions regarding today's lesson? So no one? So no one has questions regarding today's lesson?
Chị ơi mẹ.
Lasso. So if no one has questions regarding today's lesson, make sure that you make sure that you take down these notes from the chat that you have here. And these are the ones which is not present in the document. And the changes that needs to be made to the documents will be made and sent to everyone. It will be available in the Drive, our class Google Drive. And the other thing, in the Google Drive, the videos that are being uploaded will be taken down soon. So if you want to watch those, please make sure that you watch it there. And I'll make sure most of those are available in the YouTube also. And the other thing is that the audios will still be there. So you can always listen to the audio for the basic conversation class that we're doing. And the other thing is that today we also have to introduce 10 honorifics, which I will send in later. And I will just send those with a voice message explaining what each of these words means. And for those who have joined me for the grammar class, you know that you still have to memorize that one text. And those who are in the basic conversation class, if you want to improve your spelling and vocabulary, if you want, I can actually give you one text to memorize. It's a text which solely focuses on spellings and the vocabulary. So if you're interested, I can give you. I can take an extract of that. The thing is that the text starts from ka, and there are many words which starts from ka, and then it goes all the way to a. And it consists of yes. So now that you have asked me to send it, the thing is that I will send it, and you'll have to memorize it. And I'll make sure that we have a certain class where I actually where I actually give you quiz on that particular text. So I'll start with ka, and I'll send the ka portion, not the entire ka portion, but probably 1 or 2 pages on the words which has ka by today or tomorrow afternoon, before tomorrow noon, sorry. I'll send that plus the assignment to you. And that particular portion that I will send, I will read that particular portion and send it in the group that we have of the conversation class. You can listen to that and you can read. And what it will do is that it will help you with the spelling. It has spellings. For example, the very first line is kara kushu shesetang. Kara kushu shesetang kawa ko kakyangis, which means the word like kara, which is the sugar, kushu, which is the fruit, and koa, which is the leather. Kakyang means these are all words which is just a simple ka. It doesn't have a suffix or a prefix or any other thing. It is just a plain ka with vowel. Kara, kushu, koa. So the thing is that the text will continue like this, and it will tell which which word has such spelling and which word has another type of spelling. So it teaches you about the spelling. So yes, I will send it to you. So it's actually called Tagi. It's Lobchung Tagi. Tagi has a similar meaning to dictionary. So it's more like less Tibetan dictionary, but with the spelling rules. So I will send it to you. I will read the portion that I will send in the group so that everyone can listen and then they can continue. And I'll make sure that this time I read it very much slow than in comparison to the one I did with the Tree of Excellent Speech. So I'll read it slowly. So I guess this is it for today. And I will see every one of you on the next class it's on Saturday, is it? So I'll see every one of you on Saturday for the conversation class. And those who will join me for the grammar class, I'll see you on Thursday. Is it Thursday? Yes, it's on Thursday. Okay, so this is it for today, and Tashidele to everyone. Lasso.
Chin again,
Lasso.